Champagne, please. It costs how much? Champagne on a lemonade budget. What do you mean there's no more champagne? Excuse you, champagne is an essential item because you're worth it. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me again today for another champagne review on the Bubble Diaries. I realised that I haven't actually spent enough time introducing myself at the start of videos, so if you're new here, my name is Lesley Henderson and I am currently running a blog which is tasting a different champagne every month. The name is the Bubble Diaries, and basically I'm going through the months tasting a different champagne, increasing in budget until we get to Christmas, where the hope is that I'm going to taste Dom Perignon for the first time. So today's video is again a little bit different. It's not really a tasting as such, it's a discussion on tips for drinking champagne on a budget. First of all, I'd just like to say that this video is intended to be fun and light-hearted. It's not meant to be offensive or insulting to anyone, as I'm well aware that champagne in the real world is not considered an essential item. But if you're living in a dream world, a little bit like me, and you consider champagne essential, continue watching and I'm going to go through my little tips and tricks for buying champagne when you're on a bit of a budget. Now, surely you weren't thinking that I was going to sit here without a glass myself. So I've actually got a little mini bottle today, which I'm going to discuss a little bit later in the video. But what I'm going to do is just open the bottle and pour myself a nice glass. This is the perfect moment. If you've not got yourself a glass, go and get something chilled from the fridge. Doesn't need to be champagne, prosecco, cava, white wine, red wine. Well, that wouldn't be in the fridge, but anything, even a cup of tea. Just relax, enjoy yourself. So, it is Lanson's champagne that I'm tasting today, and I will mention a little bit about the champagne itself towards the end of the video. Cheers, lovelies. Hope you're well. So let's get on with the video. Tip number 1, shop around. Only a fool would walk into any old store and just pick up a bottle of champagne and march right out. What I do, which is probably quite sad, is that I research the champagne before I go in different stores. So typically in the UK, we're quite lucky in that the supermarkets do have a good range of champagne and they do discount them. The top ones I would say are probably Asda, Tesco, and Sainsbury's can be quite good as well. Waitrose is good for having different deals, but it tends to be of the higher value champagnes to begin with. So what I do is I will go onto the website's online shop, put champagne in the search bar, and then just order the products from low to high, and that way you can see what is on a deal or a discount. So that's what I do, and I think I mentioned in my last video, if you watched it, where we had some Piper, it can vary between £21 to £23 between Sainsbury's and Tesco. So that's an excellent price for a really lovely champagne. Another shop that is really good for champagne discounts is Costco. If you have a Costco card, they're really good as well. And if all else fails, there's the Aldi champagne, £12.49. If you would like a little bit more info on that bottle, my first ever review was on the Aldi champagne, so you can watch it there. So tip number 2 is drink at home. And obviously right now in lockdown you don't have a choice. So in general, I would prefer to sit at home with a nice bottle of champagne, sip and savour it at leisure, than drink Prosecco in a bar. Because Prosecco in a bar can be £25, £30, and you can definitely get champagne to take home for less than that. The other thing is that typically alcohol is much more expensive in a bar or a restaurant, and because champagne is already priced there, it means it's even more expensive when you drink it out. So I would rather drink champagne and stay in. The other tip sort of in this range is quality over quantity. So if you follow me on Instagram, you may have the impression that I'm constantly drinking, and that's not really true. I do drink, I would say I drink moderately. I try not to drink during the week, and if I do, I'll maybe have one glass of something on a Wednesday just to get over hump day. However, typically I prefer to drink moderately. I'm not saying that I don't sometimes still overcook it, but generally I enjoy drinking. I like to have a little bit of a buzz, but I don't like to feel drunk, and I certainly don't like to be hungover. I mean, who does? But I do suffer with anxiety, and it's always sky high if I've been drinking too much. So typically I would rather have less quantity but higher quality. On that point as well, when I'm drinking champagne in my flat, I really try and savour it. And I think this comes from my background in the whiskey industry, where I used to host tastings and I had training on how to savour the whiskey. So if I'm drinking in my flat, particularly if it's a new champagne, I like to look at the glass, look at the bubbles, maybe nose the champagne. And it's interesting, I think in the whiskey world, I was very used to calling it the nose of the whiskey, whereas I think in champagne it's called the bouquet, which is just lovely. So the bouquet, gorgeous, it's blooming. And then obviously you sip and savour and you enjoy some conversation. Also, what I do in my flat is that I really set the mood. So I make sure the flat is clean. I'll give the living room a hoover, wipe the surfaces, light a wee candle, little incense stick if I'm feeling extra bougie, and a little bit of jazz. I need a bit of jazz on and I enjoy my champagne. So that is typically how I would enjoy a drink if I'm staying in. That's not to say, little disclaimer, if I'm with friends that I do all of that. I mean, I feel like when you're socialising it does go out the window a wee bit. I'm not one of those people that's sitting there at a party going, yeah, well, maybe I am, but no. I think when you're on your own or with your partner or just maybe a couple of friends, those things are nice to do. But if you're at a party, come on. Yeah, moving on from that one. Tip number 3 is find like-minded friends, or convince your current friends that champagne is the way to go. So if you have friends that drink sparkling wine, half the job is done. I guess the next step is to show them that whilst Prosecco is a lovely drink, don't get me wrong, I love Prosecco, I've drunk it for years. My favourite drink is now champagne, but I'm not going to turn down a glass of Prosecco. However, if you want to drink more champagne with your friends, which is a really great way of splitting the cost because you can half the bottle, then I think you can try and show them that champagne is worth it on certain occasions. Particularly if you're like me, I'm a little bit older now and I'm enjoying the taste of alcohol rather than just drinking it to get drunk. So I want to enjoy something that's really, really nice. I think the other thing to mention is, so now I'm 28 and I definitely feel that my taste buds have changed and they're preferring the sort of drier, less sweet flavours of champagne, whereas I do genuinely find Prosecco quite sweet to drink. Okay, so tip number 4, this is kind of relevant to the bottle that I've chosen today, this little mini Lancen. It's to buy miniature bottles of champagne. So I know that Sainsbury's and Waitrose both sell the slightly smaller version of this Lancen for around about £9, and for that you get 200ml of champagne. And I know if you're looking at the quantity, you would be better getting, say, a £20 bottle of champagne, but if it's just you on your Todd and you just want a wee glass of bubbles, I think that's a great option. Or you can also get the half bottles, which is what this one is here. So I purchased this from Waitrose and it was on a discount around about £14. Obviously, I know that is still expensive, it's not cheap. However, it's not, £30-40 a bottle, and I'll sit and savour this and enjoy it. The other thing that I was going to mention about the miniatures is I found a really great website called Just Miniatures, and I'll see if I can add in a little screenshot of it here. And basically they have a huge range of champagne minis, so ones that I'd never even seen in a miniature bottle before. They have a fantastic range, and it means if you want to even try a champagne, you could order a little mini and see what it tastes like. Some of them are still very dear, but you do get the cheaper ones at the lower end of the scale. So, tip number 5. Jack, my boyfriend, laughs at me. He thinks I'm very sad. So I have quite a few store cards like these ones. So Co-op and Nectar. And what I do is every time I'm obviously in there picking up champagne or anything else, scan, get a few wee points. As Bruce Forsyth said, points make prizes. And the prize is champagne. It's so worth it. So, what would you say if I told you I managed to buy a bottle of champagne for around about £4.50? You'd want to know how. And it's from this little thing here. So I had actually saved up enough points to be worth around about £15, and the Co-op has a bottle of champagne called Les Pioneers, I think it's called, and it's around 19, so I was able to get the bottle of champagne for £4 odd. So that just shows you that these little things, they can build up those points and you can spend it on champagne. And our final tip, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, so don't take this too seriously, but if all else fails, maybe you could get a glass of champagne for free. This has happened to me before. The serious people around me would tell me that it wasn't free. I was buying something in Louis Vuitton. Honestly, one of the best moments of my life, being in the south of France, buying a bag, and the sales assistant said, would you like a glass of champagne? Ah, I love those moments. So yeah, I obviously had to buy the bag. However, I've not always been offered champagne when browsing or shopping, but I do have a little tip if you want to try and get some champagne whilst you're making a purchase. I think it helps to really hum and haw, and then maybe go away and say, I'm just going to rethink about it. Then come back, and that is hopefully when they'll hit you with the champagne, because they want to just get you that bit closer to the checkout. So that was a great moment of mine. And now just to talk a little bit about the Lanson champagne. So this is the Brut Black Label, and this is a half bottle, 375ml. The ratio of grapes that we have is 15% Pinot Meunier, 50% Pinot Noir, and 35 Chardonnay. And the Lanson Champagne House does have a long history to it. It's been running since 1760. The other thing I wanted to say about Lanson Champagne is that they are one of the few champagne houses that are not partaking in malactic fermentation. So we're getting a little bit biological now. I have been reading up on the production of champagne, and this is something I do want to discuss in a future video, but it's something that popped out to me when reading about it, was that Lanson is one of the names mentioned. Basically, malolactic fermentation is what changes malic acid into lactic acid, which tends to bring creamier, richer flavours to the champagne. But Lanson is one of the champagne houses that blocks this process. So that's something I'm going to look at discussing more in a future video, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So I hope you've enjoyed my little champagne on a budget video, and I hope to see you the next time. I'd love if you could follow me on Instagram or subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!